What's up? Welcome to the Coats Exist podcast. I haven't done a podcast in a while because I just moved, so I've been trying to settle in. I got a job for a week, and then I quit. I had an interview for a really well-paying job, but I guess I was really honest with them. They're like, "Do you see yourself working in a place like this for a long time?" And I was like, "Nah." And then they asked me, he was like, "Do you like working alone or you like working with other people?" And I was like, is this like a psychological test that you're doing on me right now? He's like, no, I just so I didn't get that job. Whatever, they just emailed me. So I don't have a fucking job right now, but it's pretty easy to get a job around here, so that shouldn't be a problem. But before I moved, there's some odd stuff that happened. It was the week before I moved. The apartment, there's an apartment next to me that had like a little roof below it, and so I was sitting on my steps outside enjoying the weather, sitting out there watching the birds and the squirrels. There was like a million squirrels that lived out there. I had names for each. Oh, there was also like a gang of cats that lived out there. There was this really old gray cat with one eye, and he like led all these other cats. There was like a bunch of stray cats. It was fucking awesome, except for they shit all over the grass, and I would step in it every once in a while. And cat shit smells worse than dog shit, so don't step in it. But so I was sitting out on my stairs on the second story of my apartment, and all of a sudden I heard a loud crash, and I looked over to the apartment next to me, and the giant window screen had been pushed out, and there was a teeny tiny little kitten that was on top of the roof. So I assumed the cat pushed the screen out and then was on the roof, like it fell onto the roof, and it was like me, and I was like, oh jeez, well somebody's obviously gonna come get this kitten and bring it back inside the house. But it didn't happen. So I went and I knocked on the door, and the people who live below, they opened the door, and they're like, what's going on? And I was like, there's a kitten up there. I guess it fell out the window. And they're like, oh, that's the upstairs neighbor. She's a fucking idiot. And I was like, okay, well, could we get this kitten down? Like, I don't want to be on your property. I feel weird, but could I? He's like, no, they'll come home. It'll be okay. And I was like, well, what should we? And the kitten was like right there, like, me. I could have literally just put up my hands and grabbed it. And he's like, no, we'll just let them get. And I was like, fucking. So I let them go inside, and I waited an hour. And the kitten was still up there just going, me. And I was like, oh, this poor little thing. So I waited till it got a little darker, and then I ran over, and I was like, come on. And the kitten jumped in my hand. And I ran home with it, and I was like, oh, this little kitten. So I figured I'd have it for like 5 minutes until, sorry, there's a cat here. I figured I'd have it for like 5 minutes until the owner came home. But it turned out they didn't come home, and I had this kitten. I was like, do I have a kitten now for the rest of my life? Do I own this? Like, it would follow me around inside the apartment. Everywhere I went, it would like walk under my feet, and it was like me. And I had like this old rotisserie chicken that I was like feeding it the chicken, and it was the cutest thing in the world, but I didn't know what to do with it. So I was like waiting for the owners to get home. She never got home, so I wrote this note. I taped it to her door. She didn't come home for that whole entire next day, so I had to go to work. I had this kitten at home, and it was like me. And then the downstairs neighbors were like, I don't think that lady's ever coming home. Did you take that kitten off the roof? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, oh, why'd you do that for? This lady might never come home. You might have a kitten now. And I was like, well, I can't own a kitten. Do you want it? And he's like, hell no, that's your problem now. You took it. And I was like, son of a bitch. Like, what am I supposed to do? I think she's in the hospital. Her mom, she broke her back. I think she's in the hospital. Her mom broke her back. And I was like, oh, God damn it. So I was like, I guess I have to give this kitten away to a vet or something. Like, I can't keep. I'm moving literally tomorrow. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So then finally, I got a call, and it was the lady, and she was like, hello? Do you have my kitten? And I was like, yeah, it fell out the window. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So I brought her the kitten. She's like, thank you so much. So that was a little adventure. And then on my last day in that apartment, I went to go get some Chinese food, and I was walking down the street. And why do we call it Chinese food, by the way? Why is it just like a blanket statement of just Chinese food? That's like so... It's like such a broad... China is huge. There's so many people there. Anyways, And it's kind of dumb when you think about it. It'd be like calling it, this is California food. We got some Minnesota food right now. I know it's a state and that's a country, but I'm just saying, like, it's just so stupid. That's Antarctican food. So I was going to get some Chinese food on my last day there, and I was walking down the sidewalk, and I looked to my right, and out of this apartment window, there's a baby in a diaper about to fall out the window. And I was like, what is going on right now? What is with things falling out of windows in front of me? So I ran across the street, and I was like, what are you doing? And this kid's like filthy, and he's got a diaper on. He's like, yeah, I'm coming, and I was like, go back inside. He's like, yeah, so I'm holding out my arms in case I got to catch this kid, but not too obviously, because I don't want him to think I'm like, hey, jump, kid. So then he goes back in the window, and I ran upstairs, and I'm banging on different apartment doors because I'm like, I got to tell somebody. And finally, I hear the one where the kid is in. He's like, and I was like, are you alone? He's like, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. So then I run home to grab my cell phone because I didn't bring it with me, and then I run back, and as I'm running back, I see that the window is closing, and I see like this little kid inside. And I'm like, open the window, and this little teenage boy opens the window, and he's like, what? And I was like, your brother or kid or whatever just almost fell out the window. I was about to call the police, and he's like, oh, sorry. And I was like, well, make sure you watch your kid. He's like, I will, sorry. And he closed the window, and then I just stood there like staring, like, what the fuck do I do? I can't just, like, what if... So I called the police. I hate calling the cops. I promised I would never call the cops again, because I called them about 10 years ago. I thought I lived with my friend, and we heard pow, pow outside at like 12 o'clock at night, and I was like, was that a gunshot? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, that sounded like a gunshot. And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, do I call the cops? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, yeah, call him. So I called the cops, and I was like, Hey, I think I heard a gunshot outside my window. And he's like, are you sure it wasn't fireworks or a car? And I was like, maybe. So anyways, I promised myself I would never call the cops again. I was like, I'm not a fan, and I feel like they just escalate situations. So I was like, I'm never going to call them again. But I did, because I really felt like this kid could potentially be in trouble or something could happen to him. So I called the cops, and I hid behind some bushes until they came. And they came, and he didn't even get out of the car. He just stared at the apartment for 5 minutes and then left. And I was like, what the fuck? So anyways, I'm never calling the cops again. But yeah, I don't know why things keep falling out of windows. But I did have a quick split second when this kid was hanging out the window where I was like, is he gonna fall out the window and I'm gonna have to keep him for a day? Like, what do I feed him? Like, there's a split second where the thought crossed my mind, like, what do I feed this kid? Do I have any food at home to give him? Like, I'm all out of food because I'm moving. But thank God I didn't have to do it because he didn't fall out the window. So, hey, I moved. Here I am. And Merry Christmas.